The moment she slid that white envelope across the Thanksgiving table, the whole room went silent. 12 people, 2 bowls of mashed potatoes still steaming, my husband's hand frozen halfway to the gravy, and my mother-in-law, Patricia, sitting there in her cream cardigan with that small, satisfied smile, looking straight at me while she said the words that would break my life open. "Daniel," she said, sweet as pie, "before you cut that turkey, I think you deserve to know the truth about that baby your wife is carrying." I was 7 months pregnant. I had my hand resting on my belly under the table because our daughter had just kicked. And I remember thinking how strange it was that the happiest little movement in my body was happening in the exact second my world caught fire. Let me back up. Because to understand how I ended up humiliated in front of my husband's entire family on Thanksgiving, you have to understand who I was before. And everything I gave up to become part of that family in the first place. My name is Claire. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in a small brick house with my mom and my grandmother. My dad left when I was 6, so it was always the 3 of us. We did not have money, but we had order. My mom worked 2 jobs and still ironed my school clothes every Sunday night. She taught me that you keep your word, you clean up after yourself, and you never make a scene in someone else's house. That last lesson would matter more than I ever expected. I put myself through Ohio State on scholarships and part-time jobs. I studied marketing. I was good at it. By 28, I had worked my way up to a marketing coordinator role at a mid-sized firm in Columbus. And I was on a short list for a promotion to manager. It was the first time in my life I felt like the ground under me was solid. I had a lease on a little apartment near the short north. A used Honda I paid off myself. And a savings account I checked like other people check their horoscope. Then I met Daniel. It was at a friend's birthday dinner in a loud restaurant off High Street. He was the guy who noticed I was cold and gave me his jacket without making a big thing of it. He was an engineer at a construction firm. Calm and dry and funny in a way that snuck up on you. He listened when I talked. He remembered small things. On our 3rd date, he told me his mom had raised him mostly alone too. After his father had a heart attack when Daniel was in high school, and I felt like we understood each other in some quiet place. We dated for a little over a year. He proposed on a Tuesday. No big production, just the 2 of us on the couch. And I said yes before he finished the sentence. We got married at a courthouse with a small dinner after, because I did not want my mom draining her savings on a wedding. And Daniel agreed, without a single complaint. That was one of the things I loved about him. He never made me feel small for where I came from. His mother felt differently. I met Patricia 3 months into our relationship. She lived in Worthington, a nicer suburb north of Columbus, in a large colonial house with white columns and a lawn that looked vacuumed. The first thing she ever said to me, after looking me up and down in the entryway, was, "Cleveland. How exciting. And your parents. What do they do?" I told her my mom worked in medical billing and my father was not in the picture. She smiled the way you smile at a waiter who brought the wrong order. And she said, "Well, Daniel has always had a soft heart for a project." A project. I laughed it off that night. I told myself she was just protective. I would spend the next 4 years learning exactly how wrong I was. Here is where the sacrifices come in, because I want you to understand what I gave up. Not to be dramatic, but so you can feel the shape of what she took from me later. 6 months after the wedding, Daniel's firm offered him a big role leading a project up in Dublin, Ohio, another suburb closer to Patricia. It was a real jump for his career. It also meant I would have to leave my job, the one where I was about to make manager. My boss actually pulled me aside and asked me to stay, said the promotion was practically mine. I sat in my car in the parking garage and cried. And then I went home and told Daniel we should do it. We should move for his job, because that is what you do. I told myself, you build a life together. You take turns carrying the weight. I found a new marketing role in Dublin, but it was a step down, less pay, less responsibility, more of a bland corporate feel. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I would climb back up. We bought a small house on a cul-de-sac with a maple tree in the front yard, and I put my savings into the down payment right alongside his. Everything I had built, I folded into us, and I was happy. I want to be honest about that. For the first 2 years of our marriage, I was happy. Daniel and I had a good rhythm. We cooked together on Sundays. We took long drives with no destination. We talked about kids the way you talk about a place you both wanted to visit someday soon. The only shadow was Patricia, and the shadow kept getting longer. The warning signs were small at first. The kind of thing that sounds like nothing when you say it out loud, but stacks up into something heavy when you live inside it. Patricia had a way of comparing me to Vanessa. Vanessa was Daniel's ex, the girlfriend before me. The one Patricia had clearly picked out as the future of the family before Daniel ended it. Vanessa came from money. Her father golfed with Daniel's late father. And even after 2 years of marriage, Patricia found ways to bring her up. Vanessa sent me the loveliest card. Vanessa is a partner at her firm now. Did Daniel tell you? This is Vanessa's mother's recipe, Claire. Be careful with the salt. She would smile at me the whole time, and if I ever looked bothered, she would tilt her head and say, "Oh, I hope I did not upset you. You are so sensitive." She let herself into our house. She had a key, because Daniel gave her one during the move, and she would show up unannounced, rearrange my kitchen, comment on the dust on the baseboards, and once, memorably, throw away a set of mixing bowls that had been my grandmother's because they did not match anything. When I got upset, Daniel said, "She means well, Claire." That is just how she shows love. I heard that phrase so many times it stopped meaning anything. She means well. She means well. I started keeping a distance the only way I could. I stopped telling her things. I stopped sharing news first. And that, it turned out, was the thing she could not forgive. Then I got pregnant. We had been trying for a while, quietly. And when the test came back positive, I sat on the bathroom floor and cried the good kind of tears. Daniel got down there with me, and we just held each other. It was, up to that point, the best day of my marriage. We told Patricia at a Sunday dinner. I watched her face. I expected joy. Instead, she looked at Daniel, then at me, then back at Daniel, and she said, "Well, this is fast." Then she asked, and I will never forget the wording, "And you're sure now?" Before you get too attached to anything. I did not understand what she meant. Daniel did not seem to catch it either. But something in me went cold, and I filed it away. The pregnancy is where the escalation really began. Looking back, I can see her building toward something brick by brick. But at the time, I only felt the pressure rising with no name for it. Patricia started showing up more, but her warmth was gone. She would sit in my living room and study me. She asked strange questions. How far along exactly? When was the appointment? Which week was the conception? Do the doctors say? I told my friend Nadia from work about it, and she said, "That is a weird level of math for a grandma." I laughed. I should have listened harder. Then things went missing. My hairbrush disappeared from the bathroom one week, and I assumed I had knocked it behind the vanity. A water glass I had used during a visit to Patricia's house. She wrapped in a napkin and put in her purse. And when I saw it, I told myself she was just being tidy. She once asked Daniel, right in front of me, whether the baby took after his side. And when I said we could not know yet, she said, "Oh, we'll find out, one way or another." I want to pause here, because I have replayed that dinner 100 times. Every piece was there. The questions about timing, the stolen glass, the comment about finding out one way or another. She was not being nosy. She was collecting. She was building a case. And I... Exhausted and pregnant, and trying so hard to keep the peace my mother had taught me to keep, told myself I was imagining things. The last warning came 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I was cleaning out Daniel's home office to make room for the nursery boxes, and I found a printed email he had missed telling me about. It was from Vanessa. The subject line was just coffee. The message was short and friendly. The kind of thing an ex might send, saying she had run into his mother, that Patricia had reached out to reconnect, and that it would be nice to catch up. It was dated 3 weeks earlier. My stomach dropped. Not because I thought Daniel was cheating. I did not. But because Patricia was pulling Vanessa back into our lives, quietly, deliberately, at the exact moment I was about to give her family a grandchild. I could feel a plan moving under the surface of things, and I could not see the whole shape of it. I asked Daniel about the email that night, as calmly as I could. He said Vanessa had reached out. He had not replied. And it was nothing. He said his mom probably just ran into her. He said, and here it is again. You are reading too much into things because you are hormonal. I let it go. I was so tired of being called sensitive that I taught myself to swallow the alarm bells. That is the part one would take back if I could. And then came Thanksgiving. We hosted at Patricia's house, of course, because we always did. 12 people around her long dining table. Daniel and me, Patricia at the head. Daniel's uncle Ron and Aunt Diane. Daniel's younger sister Megan and her husband Kyle. Some cousins. A neighbor Patricia liked to impress. Everyone in nice sweaters.
Candeli.
The good china out. I was uncomfortable the whole afternoon, and I could not say why. Patricia was too pleasant. She kept refilling my water. She kept touching my shoulder when she passed. She sat me directly across from her, which she never did. I remember Megan giving me a small warm look, because Megan and I had always gotten along. And I remember thinking, at least I have one ally in this house. We had just sat down. Daniel had the carving knife in his hand, and Patricia set down her fork, folded her hands, and reached into her cardigan pocket for the envelope. Daniel, she said, before you cut that turkey, I think you deserve to know the truth about that baby your wife is carrying. She slid the envelope across the table. It stopped in front of him. In neat printed letters on the front it said, DNA paternity analysis. The room went dead quiet. I heard the furnace click on. I heard my own heartbeat. Daniel stared at the envelope. Mom, what is this? Open it, Patricia said. I had it done. For your protection. A woman who moves this fast, who conveniently gets pregnant right when things get comfortable. I did what any mother would do. The results are inside. That child is not yours, Daniel. I could not breathe. 12 faces turned toward me. Megan's mouth was open. Aunt Diane put her hand over her chest. The neighbor Patricia wanted to impress looked at me like I was a stain on the tablecloth. And Daniel, my husband, the man who gave me his jacket, who got on the bathroom floor with me the day we found out, the man who was supposed to be my partner. Daniel picked up the envelope with a shaking hand. And he looked at me. And in his eyes I saw the thing that hurt worse than anything Patricia ever did.
Doubt.
He did not say, this is insane. He did not say, Mom, apologize to my wife right now. He did not push the envelope away. He looked at me, my Daniel, and he said in a small voice,
Claire.
Is there anything I should know? That was the betrayal, not the envelope. The envelope was Patricia being Patricia. The betrayal was the person who promised to stand beside me, choosing, in front of everyone, to entertain the question. I have never felt so alone as I did in that fully crowded room. Here is where a lot of people expect me to describe the scene I made. The screaming, the thrown wine, the flipped table. I want to tell you I did something dramatic because part of me wanted to. But my mother raised me a certain way, and honestly, in that moment, I was too gutted to perform anything. I stood up slowly. My legs were shaking. I put my napkin on my plate, and I said, in a voice much steadier than I felt, "That test is fake, and I am going to prove it. But I am not going to sit here and let you two decide whether I am a liar while I eat pie." I looked at Daniel. "You want to know if there is anything you should know?"
Yes.
"Here it is." Your mother took my hairbrush and my glass and God knows what else. And she paid for a lie, because she has wanted me gone since the day you brought me home. And you just asked me, in front of your whole family, if our daughter is really yours. I am going to remember that. Then I looked at Patricia. I did not raise my voice. I hope this was worth it. And I walked out. I got my coat. I got in my car. The little Honda I had paid off myself years ago. Before any of them. And I drove to a hotel off the highway because I could not stand the idea of going home to a house Patricia had a key to. I sat on the edge of a stiff hotel bed with my hand on my belly, and I let myself cry for exactly 10 minutes. Then I stopped because I had work to do. Because here is what Patricia did not count on. I am a marketing coordinator. I spend my days looking at documents, checking sources, spotting the difference between a real thing and a convincing fake. And that envelope was a fake. I knew it the second I thought clearly. A real prenatal paternity test needs a blood sample from the mother. Nobody had drawn my blood. She had a hairbrush and a stolen glass. That is not how any of this works. So that night in the hotel, I called my mom in Cleveland.
She did not say, "I told you so."
She just said, "Come home if you need to, baby. And take care of that grandbaby of mine." Then she said the thing that put steel back in my spine. "You do not owe that woman calm anymore. You owe your daughter the truth." The next morning I started pulling threads. First discovery. Daniel texted me a photo of the actual paper inside the envelope, because by then he had read it and he was, in his words, confused. The report listed a lab. I looked up the lab. It did not exist. There was no address, no accreditation number, no phone line that connected to anything. The logo at the top was a stock image I found on a clip art site in about 4 minutes. The geneticist who signed it had a name that returned 0 results anywhere in the country. Patricia had not gotten a real test. She had paid someone, or made it herself, to produce an official-looking piece of paper. Second discovery. I called the one legitimate DNA testing company, whose name Patricia had mentioned once. months earlier. At that Sunday dinner, where she asked how far along I was. I could not get my records, obviously, but the intake person told me something useful without meaning to. She said that a legitimate prenatal paternity test is done through the mother's blood and cannot be done secretly from a hairbrush, and that they get calls all the time from family members trying to test people without consent, and they turn every one of them away. Patricia had probably called a real lab, been told no, and gone looking for someone who would print whatever she wanted. Third discovery. And this one told me everything about motive. Megan, my sister-in-law, called me 2 days after Thanksgiving. She was crying. She said after I left, the dinner fell apart. She said she had never seen the family so quiet. And then she told me the thing that made the whole picture snap into focus. Megan said that a month before Thanksgiving, she had overheard Patricia on the phone in the kitchen. And Patricia had said, once Daniel sees the baby is not his, he will finally be free of her. And Vanessa will still take him back. I have made sure of it. Megan had not understood it at the time. She thought her mother was gossiping. She had no idea Patricia was building a bomb. So there it was. The email. The reconnection with Vanessa. The strange questions about timing. The stolen samples. It was never about protecting Daniel. It was a plan to blow up my marriage and slot Vanessa back into my place. And Patricia was willing to lie about the paternity of her own grandchild to do it. She was willing to make her son doubt his wife and his daughter forever. If it got her the family she had picked out. I want to talk about the reasonable response now, because I think this is the part that matters most. And it is the part people skip when they want a story about revenge. I did not go scorched earth. I did not post the fake document online with Patricia's name attached. I did not show up at her house screaming. I did not tell Vanessa's employer or her family, or drag anyone through the mud. I wanted to. I am not a saint, but I had a daughter coming. And I decided the only response worth giving was the truth. Clean and undeniable, delivered on my terms. So I did 2 things. First, I agreed to a real DNA test, not because I owed anyone proof, but because I wanted it to exist permanently, so that no one could ever whisper about my daughter again. I told Daniel he could come to the appointment if he wanted to look me in the eye while it happened. I used a real, accredited lab. And because it was late in the pregnancy, and I did not want the small risks of a prenatal blood test right before delivery, I told him we would do it the day our daughter was born. Cheek swabs, the both of them in the hospital, with a chain of custody, done right. He agreed, quietly, ashamed I think. Second, I moved out of the house, temporarily into a short-term rental, and I sent Daniel a message that was not angry, just clear. I told him I was not leaving the marriage yet, but I was leaving the situation because I could not grow a human being inside a war zone. I told him that his mother would never have unsupervised access to me or our child again, and that the locks were being changed, and her key was done. And I told him the hardest part, which was that the test would clear my name, but it would not fix what happened at that table.
Only he could decide whether he was going to be the kind of husband who let his mother interrogate his wife,
or the kind who protected his family. I said I would wait to see which one he chose, but I would not wait forever.
Then I focused on my daughter, and I let the consequences unfold on their own.
Because when a lie is that big, you often do not have to punish it.
You just have to stop protecting it. The consequences came fast.
Daniel confronted his mother. He told me about it later, and Megan confirmed it. He drove to Worthington, put the fake report on her kitchen counter,
and told her he had confirmed the lab did not exist. Patricia, cornered,
did what people like her do. She doubled down. She said she had done it out of love. She said I had clearly gotten to him. She said, and this is the line that ended it for Daniel.
You would rather believe that girl from Cleveland than your own mother. Something in my husband finally broke the right way.
He told me that in that moment, hearing her say, that girl from Cleveland, with that curl in her voice, he saw the last 4 years clearly. The comparisons to Vanessa. The stolen belongings.
The way she had made him doubt the only person who had ever loved him without an agenda.
He told his mother that she had lied about his child, tried to destroy his marriage, and dragged Vanessa into it, and that until she admitted all of it out loud to the whole family, she would not be part of his life or his daughter's.
Patricia refused to admit anything. So Daniel did something I did not expect.
At the next family gathering, a small Christmas thing at his Uncle Ron's house, he told everyone the truth. He showed them the fake report. He explained the non-existent lab, the clip art logo, the stolen glass. He told them what Megan had overheard about Vanessa. He did it calmly, and he did it in front of the same relatives who had watched me get humiliated on Thanksgiving. The family, to their credit, mostly came down on the right side. Aunt Diane called me and apologized, weeping, saying she had believed Patricia in the moment and hated herself for it. Uncle Ron, a plain-spoken man,
told Patricia to her face that what she did was a wicked thing to do to a pregnant woman, and he did not speak to her for a long time after.
The neighbor Patricia had wanted so badly to impress stopped returning her calls. Patricia had built her whole identity on being the respected matriarch, and in trying to destroy me, she torched that in a single season. Vanessa, for what it is worth, wanted nothing to do with any of it.
When she found out Patricia had been telling people she would take Daniel back, she was appalled. She sent Daniel one message saying she was sorry his mother had used her name, and that she was happily engaged to someone else and always had been in his rearview mirror. Patricia's fantasy had never even been real. She had been rearranging a future that only existed in her own head.
Now,
the resolution. And I want to keep this honest, because the tidy Hollywood version would be a lie. And I promised you the truth. Our daughter was born in January. On a cold, clear morning, 7 pounds and 4 ounces. With a full head of dark hair exactly like Daniel's. We named her Rose after my grandmother. The one whose mixing bowls Patricia threw away. In the hospital, we did the cheek swabs, both of them, with a proper accredited lab and a witness chain of custody. I did not need it. I knew. But I wanted Rose to have it a permanent, boring, official document proving what should never have been a question.
The result came back 2 weeks later. Probability of paternity, 99.99%.
Daniel cried when he read it. I did not. I just felt tired. And then I felt free. Here is the part one struggled with the most. Daniel and I did not just snap back to happy. That table did something to us. Every time I looked at him for months, part of me heard Claire. Is there anything I should know? We went to counseling. A good therapist in Dublin, twice a month. In that room, he had to sit with what his silence cost me.
He had to understand that she means well, had been him choosing comfort over me for years.
And that in the one moment I needed him to stand up, he had picked up the envelope instead of pushing it away. He owned it. He did the work. He was the one who insisted the locks get changed. He was the one who set the terms with his mother, not me. Over that first year with Rose, slowly, he earned back the trust he had cracked.
Not with grand gestures, but with 1,000 small choices to put us first.
I am glad I gave him the chance. I also know I would have been within my rights not to, and I do not judge any woman who would have walked. As for Patricia, she has not met her granddaughter. And as of the writing of this, she still has not fully admitted what she did.
She has offered a few of those apologies that are really accusations.
I am sorry you felt hurt kind. I only ever wanted what was best kind.
Daniel told her that Rose would be part of her life the day she told the whole truth plainly and apologized to me directly.
With no buts. She has not been able to do it. So she sits in her big colonial house in Worthington, without the son she tried to control, without the grandchild she tried to erase, without the reputation she spent decades building.
All because she could not stand the idea of a woman from Cleveland being good enough.
She did all of this to herself. I did not have to lift a finger. I got some things back.
2.
About a year after Rose was born, I found a new job.
A real one. Marketing manager. The title I had walked away from all those years ago. It felt like something in me had finally come full circle. I keep my grandmother's memory close. And I am teaching Rose the same things my mother taught me. Keep your word. Clean up after yourself. And do not make a scene in someone else's house. but I added one of my own. The one this whole ordeal carved into me. Peace is not the same as silence.
Sometimes keeping the peace just means someone is getting hurt quietly.
And it is usually you. That is the lesson I want to leave you with. If you have made it this far.
For years, I confused being agreeable with being loving.
I swallowed alarm bells and called it maturity.
I let someone treat me like a project and told myself she meant well,
because standing up for myself felt like starting a fight. But boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are the walls that keep the people you love safe, including the small ones who cannot yet speak for themselves.
The moment I stopped trying to win Patricia's approval and started protecting my daughter and myself,
everything got clearer. Not easier. Clearer.
And clear is what you need when someone hands you a lie and dares you to eat it with a smile.
So let me ask you this, and I really do want to know. If you had been sitting at that table, 7 months pregnant, and your husband picked up that envelope instead of tearing it in half, what would you have done in that moment? Would you have walked out quietly like I did? Or would you have said something I did not have the strength to say? Tell me in the comments. I read them. And I have a feeling some of you have been at a table like that too.